Hello everyone, welcome to the first iteration of CAPPL 8's weekly highlight match replay. I'm your host Voltage, and today I am joined by the other host of the show who will be recurring week to week. Dex, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Dex. I've been playing Cap for a while, competitive Mons for a while. I'm excited to review some games.
Yeah, these games are friggin' crazy. They're fun. So we're gonna start off for some context. CAPPL 8 is in full swing. Week 1 just ended. It was very exciting. Had some fine matches. Had some pretty standout matches. We're gonna look at some today. So how would you describe the format of this tournament, Dex?
So there are 6 teams. Each team has 8 slots that they can assign players to. The slots are 1 BO3 of all gens, the gens being SS, SM, and Auras. There are 3 SS slots, and then 2 of SM and 2 of Auras.
Yeah. So ultimately, there are 8 matches per team played throughout the week. This match, the one we're going to start out with, is Rabia versus D2, Death to the West. Rabia is on the Weatherman Whimsicots, and D2 is on the... What are they on?
Thatcher Be Gone Bagons, of
That's
course.
The one. Named by illustrious Captain Spoo, among others. So, what we're going to do, in general with this, is we are going to talk about these matches in a good amount of detail, mainly looking at the teams each team brought, describing what specific plays throughout the game we found to be pivotal or useful to one player or another, or other highlight moments that we felt were worth showing off. So, Dex, do you want to talk about what we see on each side of the field?
Yeah, we'll start with Rabia's team. If I'm looking at just Mon by Mon, I'm assuming that this is going to be Choice Band Tyranitar, because that's the set that's been very popular recently.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to Saharaja, which is a ground type with Water Absorb. Normally, it's going to be Rapid Spin, Swords Dance, Earthquake, Diamond Storm. And there's all kinds of EV spreads going around with it, so it could really be... It could really be super special. Yeah, it's pretty versatile. Usually it's either very specially bulky or fully offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this team, I would see a more offensive variant is what I would expect it to be.
Yeah. Rabia's team doesn't have that much trouble with water, all things considered, so you're not expecting Saharaja to be tanky and living throughout a match as much.
Yeah, I think generally you don't need it to check Feeny wholly because you have Zapdos and Melmetal and Slowbro here, so I think it's fine.
Yeah.
That it'd be more offensive. The Slowbro here is probably just Scald, I would assume. I don't think it's going to be Body Press, but it's going to be standard Future Sight shenanigans.
Yeah.
I have no idea what this jump out is going to be.
Jump out, for those of you who don't know, Grass Fairy gets access to either Trace or Drought, so it's a little flexible.
Yeah. It's definitely not Drought on this team. There's not a chance. Because there's a Tyranitar, maybe it's bulky Shore Up, but I haven't seen a jump out in SS in a long time.
Yeah, it's a very specific role it would be playing on this team, specifically probably as a water mod.
Melmetal is probably Protective Pads, I would assume, on this team. That's what I would expect, but it does pretty standard Melm stuff. And I could see it being offensive Zapdos, but defensive also makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And most Zapdos these days are usually at least 2 attacks with Heat Wave, and so I figure 3 attacks. An electric move, Heat Wave, Hurricane Roost is pretty common.
Yeah, they're almost never defog. Zapdos is really not a great defogger currently. Yeah. So it's either fully Fizz-Def with enough speed to outspeed Bisharp and Aegislash.
Yeah, 240.
Usually it's 240, or it's fully offensive. And going in between is usually not good enough because it doesn't really do well in either category unless you go full in.
Right.
You can't half-ass it with Zapdos. You cannot half-ass it.
No, you cannot. And then we have D2's team, which starts off with a pretty useful core. Specifically, I know Dragapult and Venomicon are 2 very powerful special attackers. Venomicon, in this case, is a cap that was Poison Flying. It gets Stamina as its ability, and typically wins matches by getting a Stamina boost and Nasty Plotting at the same time, so it's already got some additional bulk, and then it has a Nasty Plot. what is it? Hurricane, Earth Power, Roost, Nasty Plot these days.
That is the set.
Yeah.
And anything else is generally suboptimal.
And it runs heavy duty boots, just to avoid chip. So that's a pretty standard thing. What do you think? Has rocks on this? Clefable or T-Tar or Landorus or Ferrothorn?
I'm going to say, well, I don't think it can be Landorus. Landorus has to be defog on this team.
Right.
And because most T-Tars are banned, I'm going to say this is also choice banned T-Tar, and it makes sense. I think because you need some way of breaking through Slowbro and Ferrothorn, and choice banned T-Tar is a great way to do that.
Which leaves Clef probably with rocks, because Pharaoh's
this Clef could really be any number of things, though it is definitely rocks. I could see Trick being really strong on this if it's Tricky Barb. But it also could just be standard leftovers. Yeah, it could just be standard leftovers.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be CM on this team, however.
No, it would definitely not be CM. You don't need CM Clef when you have a Nasty Plot Venomicon plus a banded T-Tar, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think this is CM at all. So definitely full utility Clef.
Yeah, so with that in mind too, these teams, like matchup wise, just from playstyle, they seem pretty square. I personally, like looking at this team, obviously Venomicon's like an easy means of winning matches if you play it right once you get rid of Zapdos. So that's kind of the angle I might approach this if I'm D2.
If I'm Rabia, on the other hand, I think that Future Sight plus Melmetal goes incredibly hard in this matchup, especially if this Melmetal is protective pads. It's very, very strong because Ferrothorn doesn't easily switch into it if it's protective pads because usually it runs superpower in that case. You can only take so much Future Sight spam from this team, and Silver gets to set it up on Tyranitar, assuming it's not locked into Crunch.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we get the show on the road here and actually just go through this pretty at a normal pace for now. Rabia leads Tar and D2 leads Clef. So, like, right out of the gate, it's pretty safe to say that this is probably D2's rocker. And
yeah, it's probably his rocker, but whenever I see a Clefable led, I almost always assume it's Trick Sticky Barb. It's just an assumption that I make. I don't know if this one is.
Yeah.
But I think this is a really good lead for D2.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, what he's going against, because you very rarely will ever lead Melmetal into anything.
Never.
Because you just don't want chip on it, especially if, D2 leads Landorus, which is the most common lead usually.
Yeah, and Rabia's clearly here just trying to, like, bait anything to try to just get some chip off on something bulky.
I like this a lot. Like, if it's knockoff, it beats Saharaja. Not beats, but Saharaja needs its leftovers to operate correctly. So,
yeah,
I like this lead a lot.
So yeah, switch into Melmetal on a T-Wave off of D2's Clefable round 1, and then in comes Zapdos again with the knock, but the Clefable does get paralyzed, which, I don't know if that's necessarily the worst thing for D2, but it definitely could cause just like some mental anguish as it goes along.
Yeah, it definitely is annoying that he does that. However, that does reveal that this is not Rock's Clefable.
Right.
Because you have to remove Blast and Soft Boiled in the last 2 slots.
Right.
Meaning that the Ferrothorn is most likely Rock's, or that it's not Choice Band T-Star. So that's important info for Rabia to remember for later.
Yeah. And because of the T-Wave too, that's definitely specifically full utility as well, as you mentioned. You don't have to worry about any other really weird stuff from Clefable with that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about Thunder or Flamethrower. It's not going to be running those.
Yeah, especially like just here now in this meta. So knockoff comes off on here. Zapdos loses its boots, which is always a concern. Then Rabia goes into Slowbro here on a second knock, revealing Culber on the Lidoritos Slowbro. So now Rabia kind of, has a door open but closed with that lack of item, but it does get paralyzed as it drops a Future Sight. So clearly Rabia here is explicitly setting things up so that he can get Melmetal in to the best of his abilities and do some major damage here.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned at the beginning. I think the way that Rabia really makes progress against what is a very nice, like, bulky offense squad here is with Future Sight plus Melmetal. Because the Future Sight immunity is not switching into Melmetal ever.
Never.
And if he gets Melman on Clefable, that's just free chip on Ferrothorn.
Exactly. And so we'll continue on and see if Rabia does, in fact, do just that. So in comes the Pharaoh in place of CAPPL on Rabia's teleport, bringing in Zapdos. So here, if it's not obvious, Zapdos definitely has a Heat Wave coming right out here as Tar comes up from D2.
I want to say the reason that he brought in Ferrothorn there hard on the teleport is because he needed to deny Melmetal getting it at the same time.
Right.
And just baiting Zapdos in like this is really nice, actually, because it frees his own Tyranitar to come in on the future site.
Exactly, yeah. He doesn't have to worry about any of that future sight damage, and the only way Melm is coming in is on a predicted double, which this early in the game may be a little unwise. Especially given Rabia's pretty good at, knows what he's doing, so we continue. As midway through the turn Zapdos does reveal the Heat Wave. This Tar takes like 0 damage because Sand is up, and the future sight damage obviously negated by the Dark type. So, with that in mind, Rabia's Tar comes in on the Crunch from D2. Now that Crunch damage, is that banned damage or is that more utility?
That's definitely banned.
Yeah.
Also, you don't really run Crunch if you're running like a defensive T-Tar. You're probably gonna run like, I would assume, like Edge Rocks, Toxic, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would say this is banned. T-Tar is really physically bulky, like naturally.
Yeah.
So I assume it's banned. This is a really good switch, by the way, of going into T-Tar, because I think Crunch was very free and it made sense.
Right.
And also, I think that reveals that he's not bulky Jumbo. He's definitely like small offensive variant.
Right.
Because otherwise, I would have gone hard in.
Exactly. And the other thing too is, like, with Tar's coverage, you can't really freely switch in unless you know you're resisting something.
Yeah, it's a very prediction reliant mon. So generally, I think it's usually Stone Edge, Crunch, Earthquake, Fire Punch is what most banned Tars run.
Yep.
And he can't risk chip on Melmetal because it's really his way of making progress. So
right.
T-Tar was the best middle ground.
Yep, I would agree. All right, so we move along now. So with the Sand up, D2 is going to go back into Clef as T-Tar misses this Stone Edge here. Kind of really unfortunate given that that does like, what, 80 to Clef?
I think it does like 65 to 70.
Okay.
But it's a very easy 2 KO, and Clef does not meaningfully damage T-Tar back.
Yeah, especially with Sand up. So unfortunately D2 has to go into his Pharaoh here as a second Stone Edge misses. I mean, I think the use of Stone Edge there, given that we're banned and we're not trying to double there, I think is a wise play, just in case D2 misclicks or something.
Chip on Pharaoh is also just good in general.
Yeah.
I think. Because Pharaoh is the only thing stopping Melmetal from simply claiming kills.
Right, so D2 has to be pretty liberal with making predictions in terms of, Melmetal could come in most times if I'm not careful. So,
yeah.
Anyway. So as we'll see here, Rabia is going to switch out into Jumbao, get the Iron Barbs here on Pharaoh, perhaps on a Leech Seed or a Body Press. In comes Tar, though, D2's own Tar, to perhaps get the exact same kind of chip off on something, perhaps. Not too very eventful of a turn, I'd say, otherwise, because it's...
I think D2 here was predicting Zapdos to come in,
okay,
which is why he went Tar.
That would make sense.
But this Jumbao switch is actually really nice, because it's not like Pharaoh can do a whole lot to Jumbao.
Pharaoh can do, like, less to Jumbao than it can.
Yeah, they're almost never running Gyro Ball, especially with Saharaja in the game. So, I like that switch.
I would agree. I think most Pharaoh these days are Spikes, Knock, Leech, and then, like, either...
Power Whip.
Yeah,
almost always Power Whip.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't afford not having that, like, coverage, especially with...
Yeah, if you're running Knock Body Press, you lose to Tapu Fini, and you lose to Saharaja.
Right, right, which is like... That is exactly what Pharaoh's supposed to check, so let's continue with that. So, Moonblast from Jumbao knocks out the Tar because Sand is not up. Yeah,
T-Tar is bulky, but this is a Jumbao, which has big special attacks. I don't know why he stayed in, to be honest. I think Venomicon was always a very easy play, but I guess he calculated.
Yeah, he predicted Zap, and he thought he took that Moon. He was predicting Zap to come in, I guess, and like, without Sand up, Tar just goes down to a Moonblast. Like, Jumbao is pretty good. That's why it just dominates SM. But Yeah, so D2 kind of throws away this T-Tar. Whether that was specifically like a crux of a battle remains to be seen for now, but just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Where it may have come in use later. So in comes Zapdos here on this Pharaoh. As Pharaoh finally gets up a layer of spikes, thus getting some chip off on things that want to come in. Landorus goes, D2 almost runs out of time, and it comes in on a Zapdos Hurricane. But again, Zapdos' Hurricane's not a 2-hit KO, so it's not too concerned here, as you see. But it does get confused, which if I'm D2 right now, I am just thinking to myself, come the heck on, man. But not using heck, obviously. Luckily, it lands the U-turn, but then it gets paralyzed.
It's just bad luck after bad luck.
D2 is just plagued with bad luck in his matches. It's insane.
The issue here is that without T-Tar, Zapdos just clicks Hurricane forever.
Yeah.
And as long as he hits, he's making progress. It really goes back to that T-Tar sack. I think that, Jump Out is not very good for one reason right now, and that's because of Venomicon. And
Right.
he has a Venomicon. He's very easy. It's very easy to punish Jump Out. So it is impacting the game already.
Yeah, as we'll see going forward with the amount of time Zapdos is going to throw off Hurricanes here. In comes Melmetal on the Dragapult, takes the Shadow Ball really, really well. And no Spit F drop, meaning it can stay in and do kind of whatever it wants. So it's going to go for an Ice Punch, just knocking out that basically dead Landorus anyway. Ice Punch goes down.
Importantly, based off the damage that it took and the fact that it's running Ice Punch, this is AV Melmetal.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because no regular Melmetal's not going to take like that little from a Shadow Ball.
Only AV runs Ice Punch, unless it's Choice Band, which it's definitely not on this team.
Yeah, not on this team. Not when you have CB-Tar. So, Venomicon comes in, and Venomicon's a pretty good switch-in to Melmetal whenever it has a free one. And typically most times, too, if it knows it's got resisted coverage. Or resisted damage, excuse me. Because again, it has stamina, so it gets to +1 if if Melmetal wants to do anything, and especially if he wants to double Iron Bash. So that's going to force in Zapdos. The problem is this Venomicon, despite a nasty plot, cannot really touch the Zapdos. I calced this as I was rewatching it, and a +2 does not hit the 58% range. It stops at 56 based on like the current Zapdos. So D2 has nothing that he can do with this book here at this time, besides switch it out.
And Landorus being dead means that Discharge here is fairly free.
Right.
So
Zapdos just clicks an electric move and does a good amount of damage. As you can see with the Discharge, it does get a stamina boost, but that's not going to be useful, and a Hurricane misses. So honestly, that turn for D2... I really don't like that play. I feel that Venomicon still has a lot of potential to play the game back, so to speak, at least give you a fighting chance, but now with this Venomicon at 44, it can't switch into a lot of things it normally would be able to, especially from Melmetal.
I think the main reason he stayed in for that Hurricane, I understand the play, it's that chip on Zapdos can mean that he wins the game.
Right.
Because you can bank on the Stone Edge miss. You can just bank on stamina proccing enough times that T-Tar and Melmetal are not a threat. And he has an easy in versus the Jump Out. So if the Zapdos gets chipped into Hurricane range, or even into Earth Power range, and you have to win the 50-50,
right,
then that means that he wins the game.
Yeah, that's fair.
I understand it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that play too really comes down to how you are kind of as a player, because it's so navigating the end game is one of a very important skill you need to have when you're playing Mons. Can I talk tonight? Holy crap! Anyway, let's continue here. So Zapdos is going to discharge because again it is free. As Clef is coming in, D2's not happy obviously. With that Hurricane miss. And so with the Roost and the Moonblast, again, D2's probably fishing for special attack drops, which he does get here with that Moonblast, which does force Zapdos out. And I believe, no, he just fires off another Moonblast. So now, at 21, Melmetal is in, and it can just kind of do whatever it wants.
Yeah, this is basically a 50-50 of whether he goes Ferrothorn or whether he goes Dragapult.
Right.
So a bash here on Ferrothorn means this Melmetal pretty much can't come back in because he'll take 2 rounds of Iron Barbs. But a superpower is a 2-hit KO, which actually gains immense value because the Ferrothorn will be dead, meaning that Stone Edge will claim a kill every time it comes up from T-Tarp.
Yeah. And as we know with Pult, if you let it in and you are hitting with a move like that, you're not going to be able to make it last. Actually, would AV be able to manage Dragapult from this HP? Like, if it were to come in on a dib, for example.
It gets so Melmetal gets 2-hit KO from Shadow Ball from this range.
That's right. But if this Dragapult is switching in on this next turn, so like Clef switches into Pult while Melmetal dibs, and then in theory Pult would probably use like Fire Blast to knock that out, right? Does Fire Blast kill from 42?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
I think at that point he's just trying to force chip on it by U-turning into Ferrothorn.
Yeah.
It's just essentially trying to chip the Melmetal as much as possible.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm thinking some harebrained schemes. Anyway, so as we can see here with the useful Moonblast special attack drop, at this point, Rabia is actually going to switch out into Zapdos, and Clef gets paralyzed. We're not sure if that's like just D2 sacking there. Is that D2 sacking?
That has to be a sack.
Yeah. And he gets paralyzed, so he doesn't get chip on Zap. So Zapdos is able to at least drop off Hurricanes here. So now we see Pult coming in on on a Zapdos Roost, excuse me. I thought he Hurricaned here. My bad. Misremembered. And so now, with that Zapdos back at full, D2 has lost so much ground. It's rough.
It's definitely tough for him to win. At this point, his only way of winning is with Dragapult, but since this is probably Choice Scarf Jumbo, there's very, very little chance that'll happen.
Right.
And he's free to sack Slowbro here, which is what he's doing.
Yeah. It was pretty straightforward. Slowbro doesn't do much else in this match besides drop off a cool Future Sight, which it doesn't even do here. So with Slowbro dead, now he gets a free into Tar, which, again, I was thinking as I was watching this match, Tar can just click a button, and if it guesses right, just something dies. Which...
Yeah, I think if I'm Rabia, I'm just going to Fire Punch.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter if the Fable comes in. It doesn't do anything like immediately, especially to Zapdos.
Yeah.
So I would just go Fire Punch. It'll probably do a KO Venomica.
Yeah.
Range, I would assume.
Yeah, given it's probably the highest percentage thing out of everything. You wouldn't want to click Stone Edge here. The best
I think there's 0 chance.
Yeah. I would feel like the thing you would most be worried about is like Ferrothorn is probably the thing that is most important to hit with this that you would expect to switch in. So if Fire Punch's returns on everything else aren't that bad, why wouldn't you click Fire Punch there?
Yeah, I think Fire Punch is the best play. I don't know if he goes for it or not. I could see Crunch.
He goes for Crunch though. So
that's fine too.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a qualm with that, I don't think either. It's still a very high percentage one, especially since it's neutral on Pharaoh, super effective on Pult. It's going to definitely knock out Venomicon. Mm-hmm. That's a very fair play. And Clef is 2 HKO'd here as well, which, as we see, just sort of happens. So now with that out of the way, Pharaoh's going to come in, which is going to force this Tar out. Back into Zapdos, though, Rabia very easily can switch into Zapdos whenever Pharaoh comes in. It really doesn't have anything to fear. It can roost off this Leech Seed damage. And it can switch into most things that are left in this game. Rabia decides to go more offensive, though. Click a Hurricane. Now that is really good, though, because that basically puts Pult in kind of range of even just something from Saharaja, for example.
Yeah.
So that's a fine, effective play, I feel like, from Rabia. A nice little, making advances toward checkmate.
And there's very little chance, because of how low Venomicon is, that it'll actually get the chance to roost unless it's in on Jumbo.
Yeah. Which is
so
never
you don't actually need health on the Zapdos.
Huh?
You don't actually need health on the Zapdos.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Easy enough. So yeah, Melmetals comes in here now, and again, Rabia's just trying to get more... no, Rabia's looking for something to sack here, I think, and yeah.
So he's trying to go Tyranitar.
Yeah, pretty much. Free damage, more chip from Sand, sound endgame plan. In comes Pharaoh on the Fire Punch from Tar, good predict by Rabia here. That basically knocks out Pharaoh, and I think most chances that D2 had to win at this point. Because now Tar can, again, click funny buttons and do what it needs to. Saharaja can also handle it with if it's special defense. You know, once Saharaja gets a Swords Dance, this game's pretty much over.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Saharaja in Venomicon and their interaction together is that it can just Swords Dance on Venomicon. And so it doesn't proc stamina until it can Boko it.
Right. And Saharaja has, like, base 130 special defense, so... it's definitely going to be able to tank an unboosted Hurricane from Venomicon. Hell, it could even take a +2 Venomicon's Hurricane.
And this is definitely uninvested.
Yeah, definitely.
It's still tank +2.
Yeah, so with that, D2 can only send in Pulse, hope for a crit on the Shadow Ball, and on every single Shadow Ball from here on out. So Rabia does take this game. Really, really fun game to watch. Unfortunate if you're D2, but D2 can bounce back. I'm not too concerned about him.
Yeah, I think the only real misplay here was sacking Tyranitar.
Yeah.
That Tyranitar was extremely important for him in this game, and he threw it away.
Yeah, and Rabia just, maneuvered perfectly. Not that, he had to worry as much, but made very offensive plays at the right time, and all in all, a very convincing win, capitalizing on D2's mistake. Okay, so we now have our Gen 7 cap match, our Sun and Moon cap match between Velvet and SHSP. Velvet's on Nechonkers, Dex's team, and SHSP is on, what's theirs, the Storming Saharajas?
The Storming Saharajas.
That's the one. So, let's again look at these teams that have been presented. Dex, do you want to talk about Velvet's team?
Yeah, because I built it.
Alright, tell us what it does.
The team is based around Mega Metacham plus Weavile, because those two together are kind of an insane breaking core. They can really burst through most things, just in general. Weavile handling faster flying types like Tornadus for Mega Metacham, while Mega Metacham can handle Ferrothorn and Tux very nicely. From there, this is going to be Assault Vest Tornadus, generally to deal with Jumbao, which threatens both Metacham and Weavile if Weavile walks into a dark move.
Jumbao is kind of the S tier, like, centralizing mon of the tier, almost in a way. I wouldn't say as much as Snorlax is, but, like, akin to it.
Yeah, like Snorlax in RBY, I would think.
Gold, Silver, Crystal.
Yeah, and GSC, yeah. It's similar in that it's a really bulky attacker that can kind of go off at a moment's notice. Generally, it runs
Shore Up.
Shore Up, Wish, Moonblast, Hidden Power, Ground on its Trace set, which is generally considered its best set, along with Z Fairy. But it also has an offensive set with Drought, and which will run Z Fairy, Moonblast,
either Solar Beam or Leaf Storm.
Well, usually you don't run grass coverage, actually.
Oh, not these days?
Usually you drop it for Flame Burst and then Hidden Power Ground. You never want to drop it in background.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's a way that it can, like, touch Tran and Toxapex, so...
After Torn, we have Libra, Equilibra, which is ground steel that has access to both Bulletproof and Levitate, so it can kind of pick and choose what counters it.
And in this gen, it's got its pre-nerfed special attack at like 139.
Yeah, I think it's 131.
Okay,
it's very, very high.
Yeah,
it also has access to Doom Desire, Rapid Spin. It's kind of a crazy mon.
Yeah.
With Bulletproof, it counters pretty much every psychic type, except for Z Fighting Tapu Lele, which you just have to bait out the Z move and then it fully walls it.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't super familiar with the history of Cap metagames, Equilibra allowed Cap to explore the delayed turn thing before Gen 8. We checked it out in Gen 7 and figured, oh hey, this is actually kind of good. And then when it sort of caught on mainstream with the new teleport mechanics, for example, we were like, yeah, cool, Future Sight, that works too, cool, great. So it's kind of just fun little tidbit for you all. Anyway, Pex. What about Pex?
Pex is mainly to deal with Jumbo, actually, because you can't just have Torn deal with it, because if rocks go up, there's a chance that Z Fairy will just KO even Assault Vest Tornadoes. So Pex is just generally good to deal with Jumbo, especially because this Torn is a little overworked on this team because it needs to also check opposing Equilibra.
Yeah, that is one thing I noticed on this team, that like there are very few true checks to Equilibra. So,
and that's a reason, which will be revealed later in the game, that this is on this team. It's Levitate Equilibra, which performs very well into opposing Equilibra. It's Levitate or a Sphere,
like
purely to kill other Equilibra.
Yeah, it's almost like it completely walls itself at some points. Not necessarily, not entirely, but you know, like conceptually. And then Chomper here is, what's that?
This is just normal Rocky MZ Garchomp, pretty standard SM set.
Yeah.
It's nice because +2 Z Stone Edge will always Oko Bulky Jump Out, which does not run enough speed to outpace Garchomp. So it's actually, looking at this matchup, +2 Rocky MZ just gets a KO. Unless it's a full health Gliscor or a full health Rotom Wash.
Yeah. And speaking of SHSP's team, we can start on kind of either end. I mean, SHSP starts with Jumbao, Zam, Rotom, which I feel like I've seen SHSP bring a lot of teams with that architecture in the past. Excuse me. You know, that's obviously Mega Zam, and yeah, I don't really know how to describe this best other than like it's kind of what you would expect.
Yeah, it's pretty standard SM stuff. Rotom Wash is super good in SM because it can basically fully deny Libra anything it wants to do. Also, it's the best Doom Desire switches in the game.
Yeah. Torn and Tran are obviously really, really good on their own, so they just complement this team even more.
Yeah, and Gliscor on this team, I would assume, is Swords Dance, because you have a Defogger in Rotom, and you have a Rocker and Heatran.
Yeah.
But if the Rotom is offensive, like if it's Waterium Z or Electrium Z, then it could be Defog Gliscor. But probably not.
But if you're playing the odds, it's probably Ferium Z Jumbao and Defog Rotom Wash. Like, not that you can totally believe that, but it's pretty freaking likely. Yeah, and then this is just SD Facade Roost.
SD Facade Roost Quake is most sort of since Gliscor. Though I do remember one SDL Gliscor had Taunt over Earthquake, which I find to be insane. But
yeah, especially you could not run that in Cap probably. And the last thing about this Gliscor's got a pretty customizable EV set. It can like just sort of work with depending on what you want it to check. Judging on this team, this is probably going to be, what, a little more physically tanky here?
I would say especially defensive. Just assuming that the Heatran is more offensive, you have Rotom to deal with physical threats.
Yeah.
And you really need 2 Mons that can sort of deal with Mega Alakazam, which looks to be an incredible... If we brought Mega Alakazam, it would have been a very easy win.
Frankly,
especially knockoff Mega Alakazam really destroys SHSP's team, so he's lucky that didn't get brought, but...
Don't forget. Yeah, and you're not leaking tech now, so don't worry about it. Anyway, let's get the game started here. So turn 1 with our leads. From Velvet, we lead Weavile, and from SHSP, we see a lead Tornadus Therian. SHSP's lead for Tornadus Therian, I think, is like one of the most safe leads you can bring in SM. Like,
yeah, I think he wants to deny like a Metachan lead, which is what I would lead if I was Velvet. You want to get Metachan Mega evolved and doing work as soon as possible because of how strong it is generally.
Right.
And it's just generally hard for SHSP to switch into it because it's Mega Metachan.
Yeah.
It just hits like a truck. So I think this is actually a very smart lead from Velvet because I think Torn is a pretty obvious lead on SHSP's part, so leading Weavile is very nice.
And that way you can catch some things off guard, just because, again, Weavile is, in fact, faster at all points. So, and this is not Scarf. Why would it ever be Scarf? That is very dumb. feel dumb for even mentioning it. So in comes Tran, an obvious answer to Weavile, as the knot comes, does a ton, gets rid of that leftovers, which is going to be crucial because it now denies Tran any form of recovery whatsoever, which is huge on Heatran. So in comes Jumbao, now revealing a Drought Jumbao, not a Trace Jumbao, as another knot comes off. This time, not removing it, so it's pretty much guaranteed a Z Fairy.
It's guaranteed to be. I could tell you the moves in my sleep. That it's Z Moonblast, Shore Up, Hidden Power Ground Flame Burst.
You're having trouble there. Were you awake or asleep? What's up?
I'm asleep.
Yeah, true. So yeah, now this Jumbao comes in, and again, I think that was primarily to absorb. SHSP must have to think that this is a banded Weavile at this point, right? So in comes Toxapex, basically confirming his thoughts as the double back into Heatran comes out here. Now
super
yeah, pretty much. And now Velvet makes the play into Chomper as Heatran goes for Magma Storm, getting some very useful chip off on Garchomp in the process. That said, SHSP's got a switch, so into Rotom Wasp. Again, kind of an obvious answer, as Velvet is able to get up their rocks for, at that time, that's like the perfect opening to get them up, so I think that's totally good there. And at this point now, Velvet could fear a Will-O-Wisp coming out, but at the same time, like, Garchomp does very little in this match, I feel.
Yeah, I think it needs to get its Z move off once, and that's really all it's supposed to do.
So if it gets
so
Wisp,
Velvet,
that's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, so Velvet here is going to go for Sword Stance, which I think is actually the correct play, because this team, though I made it and I think it's great, actually struggles a lot with Rotom Wash.
Yeah.
I realize on just general offensive pressure to deal with it.
Yeah, there's nothing on this team that really wants to be wisped for a long-term kind of deal. Like, you know, if you're Libra, depending on the moves, you probably don't have recovery of some kind besides leftovers, so you lose that leftovers recovery. If you get it on Pex, then you're immediately going to be setting yourself up for a bad position late game. And obviously you don't want Cham and Weavile to get burned. Yeah. So, you know, if something has to get burned on this team, let it be the thing that in reality is just supposed to boost and then die.
Yeah.
And as we see, the Will-O-Wisp does come out. So now Velvet here basically can, again, kind of do what they want. They're going to go off on the Z Rockian just to get it all off and then basically let this Garchomp die so that they have a free switch in, as Rotom does in fact knock it out with Hydro Pump. So
that chip is super important. Because you see that it's not leftovers, which means that the chip is semi more permanent, but this is going to be Wiki Berry Rotom.
Yeah,
so if you KO it here with HJK, that's really important. And nothing on SHSP's team wants to switch into Medicham. Absolutely nothing. With rocks up, not even Torn can switch into HJK.
Gliscor, can't Gliscor switch in?
It can, but it gets KO'd by Zen Headbutt afterwards.
That's right. That's right. So, with that in mind, Medicham now has the Mega and can go right for Zen Headbutt as opposed to HJK. And how do you feel about that play?
I think he just didn't want to risk a miss, which I understand. And maybe that's a roll. Maybe that's a favorable roll. I don't know the calc there.
I didn't count this one, but
I'm gonna assume that it was a roll.
Yeah.
But I think I would always just HJK. Health on Medicham is not super necessary. It's not actually tanking hits from anything that will hit it.
And you do have a Weavile, so...
Yeah, so I think HJK is a safer play. He might have also been scouting for Protect, which is some Rotom run.
Yeah.
But...
That's also very fair.
Yeah. I don't agree with that Zen Headbutt.
Yeah, and it pops the berry, which basically allows Rotom to Volt Switch, and it does get some chip up on Mega Medicham. So Torrentee is going to come in here, forcing Velvet to switch out, doesn't want to take a Hurricane. Libra is a very easy switch, though, as Torn itself goes for a U-turn, and it's SHSP is able to get in this Rotom Wash here. So now we'll see kind of what Velvet wants to do, switching back out into Mega Medicham. Now, this Rotom was either going to do what? Pump it or Wisp it, right?
It was never going to Wisp.
Okay.
I think pump is always either pump or you Pain Split. And I think Velvet here is expecting Pain Split, which is why he went Mega Chim. It's his lowest mon, so it gives the least amount of recovery back.
Yep. As we see though, out comes a Will-O-Wisp. Like, I don't know exactly what the heck was going through SHSP's head here.
Maybe he predicted it. I don't know.
I guess. I mean, I don't really like that play. I would have probably clicked Pump, because even if you aren't hitting a Libra, nothing coming in except the Pex wants to take it, and then Rotom kind of still manhandles Pex. So, I don't know. I wasn't the one playing, so I can't tell you. So yeah, Medicham gets burned, and now those fake outs at least are going to be pretty good. So I guess, yeah, SHSP, credit where credit is due, got a very, very good predict off on the circumstances. So now Medicham is burned, and now its HJKs basically are still doing...
Still does so much, man.
God, like, you hit 2 of those, that's 76%.
Yeah.
Holy sneaks. So we get out there, and now SHSP has a Tornadus that needs to get back up to full. It's going to drop a Hurricane here against Velvet's own Tornadus, and now we're kind of in a... I don't know if that wasn't...
I forgot that this is not a Solfest Tornadus. This is a Z-Move Tornadus.
Oh, it's Z-Fly?
I completely forgot that it's Z-Fly.
Well, audience, hope you enjoy being lied to up until now.
I saw it took 53 from Hurricane. I'm like, wait a second.
Hold on. Yeah, because that should not be doing that much. So that does tell SHSP that, oh, snakes, maybe this... You liar, Dex? What the hell? This already is Continental Crush.
What is the Torn? Maybe it's Helmet. Must be
Helmet.
Okay.
You've still been lied to. This time by both of us.
We figured it out.
Yeah. Alright, so Libra comes in here on Torn. What's Torn doing? U-turn? Yeah, that makes sense. Basically, SHSP has a free into Rotom every time Libra comes in, so long as this Rotom has Pain Split. If it doesn't have Pain Split, SHSP is in for a real tough time, and as we had sort of determined previously, this thing probably has Defog as its last move, right?
Yeah, most likely.
So SHSP has to be, like, very, very aggressive with this Rotom Wash, I think, at this point. Because it's only coming in twice.
Yeah.
And as we can see, SHSP is going to, in fact, go for the Pump, which is probably, again, that high percentage play now that Medicham is, in fact, burned. Weavile comes in and knocks out that Rotom, so, you know, dead Rotom, but...
Velvet goes for Crash there to catch Jumbo.
Yeah.
Pushing in.
Yeah.
Just in case he wanted to preserve the Rotom, but
yeah.
No way it's ever happening.
Yeah. Better to get the Jumbo out than, like, miss something from Rotom, because you're probably still going to be able to knock it out. So yeah, Tran comes in, Heatran comes in, and what we're going to see here is an Icicle Crash Miss, which, with a Magnum Storm that knocks out Weavile. Now, a lot of people were just confused, thinking, like, does that kill? And there was, you know, some discourse, some banter in the chat and everything, like, damn, that kills? Or whatever, so I don't think that Miss matters.
It doesn't kill. Yeah. It really does not matter.
Yeah. So pure bans, basically, all things considered.
Yeah.
So now, Pex comes in on the Heatran, tanks an Earth Power and knocks it out with Scald. Again, kind of expected Heatran getting chip on Toxpex is nice now, just because Velvet's down to 3 Mons.
I'm really surprised that SHSP didn't use Stealth Rock there. I feel like Stealth Rock is super easy. It puts Torn in range of Mega Alakazam. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised that he went for Earth Power on the regen Mon. But.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question because, as we'll see, this Tornadus is going to be able to get pretty high up in health again, and by denying that regenerator recovery, SHSP may have a better endgame potential as a result. But
yeah,
because SHSP doesn't do that, because SHSP doesn't do that, we have to see how he's going to navigate this endgame. And at this point, by the way, Dex, who do you think, just like from an objective standpoint, who do you think is in a better position to pull out a win?
So, if this is Bulletproof Libra, which I know it's not, but if it was, it would actually be Velvet, because Equal Libra sort of goes to town on this team. But if it's Levitate Libra, that means that Flame Burst Jump Out, which it surely is, and Focus Blast Alakazam can beat it.
Right.
So I think SHSP is thinking he is losing, and I think Velvet is thinking that he is losing, which leads to a very funny endgame.
Right. And so as a result, SHSP is going to make some plays and attempt to make some very aggressive assumptions about Velvet's team in order to give himself a shot at winning here, as we will see. So Equilibra comes in. It's still at full, or now it's back at full and everything, and at this point it can sort of do whatever, because as long as it can switch out its teammates, there will be passive recovery. A Heat Wave comes out from SHSP's own Torn, perhaps to catch that Equilibra off guard, because they're not usually running Heat Wave in SM these days, right? Like, this is a...
No, Heat Wave is still pretty common.
Okay. I thought it was Knock Taunt, or Knock Fourth.
On AV.
Oh, this is AV.
Definitely
That's right,
AV Torn. You're going to run your Hurricane Heat Wave knockoff, or you can drop Heat Wave for Sludge Bomb, but usually it's Heat Wave.
Yeah. Yep, I forgot the set. My bad. So now we see Gliscor coming in, and for the first time actually all game, tanking a Hurricane just like that, but getting the confusion, which is always really, really frustrating just to like have to deal with. Tornadus is going to drop a Taunt though, meaning that whatever this Gliscor wanted to do, it can't. Probably an SD, right? Or a Roost.
I would say a Roost would be coming out there, predicting Libra to switch in.
Yeah. All the same, this Gliscor, like, if SHSP is able to work it well, this could, and play around the confusion, this could definitely work. But unfortunately, because it hits itself in confusion twice here, this Gliscor is kind of just SOL. Basically, had those two confusions not happened, that would have been a very different endgame, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would have at least gotten Chip on Torn to put it into range of Mega Alakazam. It's currently in range of Mega Alakazam, but SHSP is playing it like it's AB, but right. I don't know why he's doing that. Yeah, because he knows it's not AB, because Hurricane did 52. So
I'm not sure if he's thinking that's just a really high roll for whatever reason. But, like, isn't AV the roll up to, like, only 41, 42 at most?
Yeah, no way it does that much.
Yeah, so that's very confusing. So
I also think maybe he also knows that it's not AB and doesn't want to just invite Libra in, because Doom Desire is a little rough.
Doom Desire runs through his team.
And then I think that's why he's not going Torn here and instead risking the Cane.
Yeah.
But it's still weird.
Yeah, because if Velvet is able to set up a Doom Desire, one of these things will die.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So Velvet's best way of winning is getting their Equilibra just up and clicking Doom Desire when possible, and otherwise just keeping it alive. It's like finding the right opening in a boss fight, basically. And meanwhile, SHSP right here, I guess, again, since he's assuming Equilibra is Levitate, or excuse me,
he's assuming that's
bulletproof,
yeah.
Excuse me, like, the best way to win is with this Torn. So we're going to see how that goes. So yeah, he's clicking Hurricanes here, trying to get that chip off on Torn. Gets the confusion, which is useful, but, you know, it's easily removed by a switch out. And obviously all that Hurricane is sort of worked off. And here it finally reveals that's the first time Rocky Helmet has popped this entire match.
We should know it's Rocky Helmet.
Yeah.
Just because of the damage that this Torn is doing, and that SHSP Torn is doing to this Torn, you should know.
Right. So with that in mind, here comes Mega Alakazam. It's going to trace some Regenerators, do kind of its thing, fire off some Psychics. You know, obviously nothing from Velvet wants to take stuff from Megazam, but SHSP doesn't necessarily know that. So when Velvet sends in this Equilibra, SHSP is going to switch out, as opposed to perhaps fire off a Focus Blast. Obviously, if he tries and he's wrong, he loses. So it's kind of like the right thing to do. But
I think it's also important to note that Focus Blast is not going to kill Equilibra, even if it is Levitate.
Right.
Libra will live one and KO you back with Earth Power. So I think that Torn here is the safest play.
Yes.
It makes the most sense.
Definitely. So, but Equilibra does... Whoa, shit, I got a bug in my hand. What the fuck? Oh, God, that's a bee. What is a bee doing in my room? God damn it. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna figure this shit out. All right, we're back. Sorry, I do not know where the bee went. The fly went, whatever it was. So we're just going to keep going. All right, so at this point, we have the Aura Sphere from the Equilibra revealing it's not Flash Cannon. Do you think a Flash Cannon would have knocked this out?
I don't think Flash Cannon would have knocked it out. And it's also important that he's revealed Aura Sphere, because that means that Jumbao at least can mid-ground it with Flame Burst.
Right.
Because it won't die on the turn that Doom Desire is, still in the air, that's not coming down. And it can pressure Libra with Flame Burst, and perhaps force in Tox effects, which Mega Alakazam can take advantage of.
Right, which I think is what we're going to try. I think we're going to see SHSP do here. Nope, he actually goes for Heat Wave. Never mind. So yeah, Pex is in now, and so the...
it's because Doom Desire was up.
Right, that's right. Yep, forgot about that, because you get distracted and then you forget. That's just what happens. So with Pex out, Zam does have a free switch in here, but a lot of people in the call watching this match too were kind of saying, now that Tornadus Therian is down, Velvet is like in a really, really good spot, because now Libra just sort of does what it wants, so long as SHSP keeps thinking it's bulletproof. So as we see here, with Megazam in on the Toxapex, at least it can get some recovery too as it switches out into Jumbao and gets that drought off in the air. And now Velvet reveals Toxic. The whole game hadn't revealed it. Now this Jumbao, maybe you think it can sit on this if it's just like Scald Knock. What would it be? Scald Nox or Scald Toxic Spikes?
Scald Toxic Haze.
Yeah.
Scald Toxic Recover Haze is the moveset of this Toxapex, which is the normal.
Yeah, it's not spikes anymore.
It's usually Toxic or Toxic Spikes. The Toxic is generally better, because Toxic Spikes are just not that good.
Yeah, I think Toxic Spikes are a little bit more common in Sun and Moon OU, but like here, given Equilibra exists,
given Libra,
Toxic is generally just better overall. That and the dominance of Toxapex. So, with that in mind, now Jumbao is on a timer, and so SHSP has got to play very aggressively, and so it's going to be forced to shore up here, recover HP, as Velvet does the same with Toxapex. And we do see the Toxic chip coming off as Megazam comes back in, once again tracing that Regenerator. Very, very useful for SHSP, as again Velvet just clicks Toxic again. Very nice read. Really, really bold move, as you say. Now with both of them Toxic, Velvet though can afford to at least just get some turns of of Toxic off, because even just clicking Recover is basically chipping that Zam. So yeah, now Jumbao comes in as well, and it's also going to do some stuff. And now that Equilibra's in, you basically have a free Doom Desire.
Yeah.
But
I want to say, without Sunup, I think Velvet felt a lot more comfortable staying in and greeting a Doom Desire.
Right.
Because what you can do is, if you get a Doom Desire up, it guarantees a kill. And if that kill is Jumbao, that means that the combination of Toxic plus Regen on Tornadus will get it to a point where it can tank Megazam Psychic and then KO it with U-turn.
Right.
And so I like this play.
Yeah.
And Flame Burst won't kill because Sun is up.
Yep.
Sun is not up.
Yep.
Really.
And so this is what lets Velvet stay in. However, again, SHSP is not aware that this is Levitate. SHSP is under the impression that this is bulletproof. So that... Excuse me, cut that part. So that SHSP is able to make this assumption that he has to go for Hidden Power Ground as opposed to Flare Burst.
Well, Flame Burst is not
Flame
blocked.
Burst, excuse me.
Flame Burst
Oh,
is
is it
not
not?
blocked.
What am I thinking of?
What he's doing right here with Hidden Power
wants
Ground
chip.
is he wants Chip on Toxapex, because HP Ground will put Toxapex into range of a Megazam Psychic
That's
that
it.
will not let it Toxic stall it another turn.
Yeah. And so any chip he can get off on Libra at this point is really important, but then, of course, it reveals that Libra is in fact Levitate and not bulletproof, and gets off a Doom Desire, which is basically game at this point.
It is sure as a kill.
Yeah.
You see Tier saying worked, because that was the whole bait.
Yeah. And D2's being like, what the fuck am I watching? So yeah, with this Doom Desire off, basically Zam is gonna die to this U-turn plus Doom Desire plus Toxic. Pokemon Showdown here for you. And then Jumbao can't really beat a combination of these three.
It just can't break Pex.
Not with,
It's a great Mon, but Pex is too bulky.
And with Toxic, SHSP says GG, and that's that. So Velvet is going to pull the win out here because literally they can just switch between Pex and Torn and they will win.
Yes.
So yeah, we get to finally see the nice Twinkle Tackle. And I don't know if Velvet just switched into Libra just to flex at that point.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, the game is over. So we play because it's a tournament match. We play it out to finish it off. And we see the Jimbao is going to go down to a combination of U-turn plus Toxic. So again, a really, really good match to watch. This first week, I found that there was a lot of interesting play. You can kind of follow the thought process of both players, and I really like that about this match, in that it's a very good explanation of how to visualize both sides, appearing that they are on the losing end of a match, based on the assumptions that they've made across the match. I really liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really fun game.
Alright, and then we will move on to Oras. Alright, and now we have, as I mentioned, our Oras match between BasedWhat on the Storming Saharajas against SteamBuns, again on the Lechonkers. So, Dex, you also built SteamBuns' team, or was this one of theirs?
This is one of their teams.
Okay.
They gave me a few to choose from for them to use, and I did not choose this one. They brought it in anyways.
Yeah, they were very proud of this team. So
it is a really cool team because Cyclant is both strong and terrible in auras. Sometimes it does amazing things, and sometimes it does absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
in this game it looks pretty decent because there are 4 Mons that are weak to ice.
Yeah, I have the team up here actually too, so I won't reveal the whole team itself, but I will sort of comment on the things that appear just to make sure myself that these are correct. So yeah, as you mentioned, Cyclant is in Crucible. An interesting development. Mega Crucible was unbanned for this tournament, but it was also nerfed. And that nerf included the removal of Head Smash, and I believe it was some attack. Is that right?
They removed Head Smash and Low Kick.
Low Kick, yes, that too.
The reasoning for Low Kick was that a very common answer in Mega Crucible is Excadrill, which happens to get 2 KO'd by Low Kick.
And so there you have it.
It kind of solidifies Excadrill as a very good Crucible switch.
Yeah, because otherwise Mega Crucible was freaking awful, dude. It got nerfed very quickly, and to the point where Crucible's entire viability kind of fell off for a while after that nerf back in Gen 7.
Yeah, it got nerfed in Gen 7. Also, the introduction of Eaton Weaver kind of killed it.
Yeah, that too.
And Megas aren't a thing in Gen 8, so it's very mid.
Yeah. Yeah, so here we are. And then we have Kitsuno. Kitsuno is really good in Oras just because, again, Mega Crucible is very present. Manaphy is a huge presence. Latios is concerning.
It's just a very good mid-ground for these common pivot spam teams.
Exactly.
In Aura's cap that have Mega Crucible plus Kerfluffle. Mm-hmm. It happens to resist all or be immune to all 2 of their stabs, or both of their 2 stabs, so all 4 stabs. And it can really run a very wide variety of stuff. It gets access to defog in this gen, which is super valuable. Its typing in general has a lot of great defensive utility to it. Steel Ghost in a meta without Aegislash is very nice.
Yeah. And it also has a custom move known as Shadow Strike, which is a physical ghost move. What is it, 80 base power?
It is 80 base power. It has a 50% chance to lower the foe's physical defense.
Yep. So, again, kind of one thing you have to keep in mind with Kit as you see it. It also has a couple different abilities. Frisk, because it was one of those scouting mons when it was made back in Gen 4. It also has Limber to prevent paralysis. Pretty straightforward.
Generally it runs Limber this generation because it's a very nice Thunderwave Clefable switch in.
And as we know with Oras, Thunderwave Clefable is really, really good.
Yes.
So then we have Latios. Latios is pretty solid in Oras cap. Though it does again have to contend with Cyclant, which isn't otherwise a thing because Cyclin's gonna reach 375 speed, so the only way Latios can work is with the Scarf.
Well, that's not necessarily true. The Scarf is good, but it's not totally necessary. I think this team is Scarf. The bigger issues with it is that both Kerfluffle and Crucible outspeed it. Mega Crucible outspeeds it.
Right.
So it has to deal with A, Kerfluffle, which can OHKO it, and B, Crucible, Mega Crucible, which can just U-turn on it and generate a lot of chip on it.
Yeah, and it also speed ties with Kit, which is again like not something it wants to be doing.
And it doesn't have a great way of dealing with it, outside of HP Fire.
Yeah. So then we have Gliscor. This thing never dies. Like, you can just play it well and live everything. And then you have Clefable, the ever-present menace of anything related to Oras. Now, Clefable's last move between Wish, Thunderwave, and Protect, I believe, is usually pretty customizable.
Well, usually you're running Soft-Boiled always, no matter what.
That's right. Oh my god.
It's generally Soft-Boiled and Thunderwave are the moves that you always run with Clefable. And the last two moves are pretty up for whatever. You can run Flamethrower Wish, Flamethrower Stealth Rock, Flamethrower Knockoff, you can run Flamethrower Moonblast, then you can just run Moonblast over Flamethrower. The Flamethrower is generally more common than Moonblast.
Yeah. Flamethrower, especially in Cap, is much better than Moonblast just because you do have, again, abundance of Kit, abundance of Cruci, things that are very specially defensive and would resist Fairy.
And there's also a lot of Mega Scizor now at times. With Crucible back in the tier, Mega Scizor is
really good.
Extremely valuable as a Fairy resist, which is important for Kerfluffle, and it dealing with Mega Crucible very nicely.
Absolutely. So based on that, we now have SteamBuns' team. Let's talk a bit about BasedWhat's team. This team is interesting to me because, like, it's... I don't want to call it basic, but it seems very readable, aside from Cyclone.
Yeah, I think if you just look at the team, you have Mega Scizor.
Yep.
You have it's probably a bulky Tailglow Manaphy.
Yeah.
It might even be Rain Dance Rest, though. I think it would just be. I think it's just
regular.
The Moongus, which does a Moongus things. This Garchomp could be a number of sets, but on this team, I would expect it to be Tank Chomp.
Yeah. There's no other rocker on the team.
This has to be Assault Vest Tornadus. I don't think there's another set that would fit on this team.
Yeah.
And then whatever the Cyclone is. Cyclone might just... If I see it in auras, I don't know what it's... It could be Scarf. It could be physically defensive. It could be any number of things.
It could be Specs.
Hopefully it's not Specs.
That would suck. It's like 3 attacks, slack off.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that is interesting, though, is that if this is Mega Scizor, this has probably not got Defog, which means the only thing that has Defog on this team is this Torn. But if this
actually, no, that's not true.
Is
that? No, it has to be Defog. Defog Mega Scizor is actually really popular in auras, and also Torn does not get Defog in Gen 6.
You're right, and you're right.
So the only hazard removal is Defog from Torn. Defog from Scizor.
Yeah. So yeah, if that Scizor is not Defog, then that is a real problem. If SteamBuns wants to set up some spikes, perhaps, from Cyclint, if it has spikes.
And it should be Spikes, because Spikes is so powerful.
Spikes are really good in this gen.
It's part of the reason Ferrothorn is so good in this gen, is because it's one of the few viable Spike setters.
Yeah, and the reason for that is, in case you're curious, is that there's even less hazard control in this gen, and Kit makes a phenomenal spin blocker. So, just in case. So let's get on the road here with the lead from BasedWhat with the Scizor and SteamBuns leading Balloon Kit. So right out of the gate, it's pretty... Ooh, my screen just turned on to the sun midnight mode, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that'll impact the screen recording, but I think it's just a monitor thing.
Nothing changed.
Yeah, sorry. Cool. All right, we'll pick up. 3, 2, 1. So yeah, Balloon Kit is out here, and Scizor right away. I think the easiest thing that BasedWhat was trying to do with this lead is just get Mega Scizor on the field as fast as possible, whereas SteamBuns is making the old reliable fast pivot turn 1 lead see what's going on.
And also, I think seeing this as Balloon, if I was BasedWhat, I would immediately think that this Clefable is Wish. Because Kit actually gets a lot out of leftovers. And if this is Balloon, then I'm going to assume that there's another way of healing the Kit suit. Because Kit generally has to deal with a lot over the course of a game. Versus this team, it doesn't actually have to do that much. Just generally like Chicken Kerfluffle and Crucible takes a good deal of bulk, which Kit does not actually have. So I'm going to assume it's Wish Clefable from here on out.
All right.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable assumption, as we'll see. So Clone comes in on the Wisp from Kit, so he was clearly trying to catch the Caesar staying in. Luckily for BasedWhat, that doesn't happen. Maybe, well. And so the U-turn comes out from Kit, no static, so that's very nice.
Well, it's Limber, so no static forever.
Yeah, no static Limber, if it didn't matter. Makes it that much good, and that's why it has it, so we can U-turn on stuff like this. So as we see, Clefable is coming in. Now, we don't know what this Clefable's moveset is, but if we can infer that this is Wish, then we probably can assume that it's only got one attacking move. And if we're going with a high percentage chance, it's probably either Moonblast or Flamethrower.
Yeah,
and if I'm
it has to be one of those.
Yeah, and if I'm BasedWhat, and perhaps I don't have as much experience in the tier, it may be kind of hard to determine that at this point. So it doesn't make sense for this clone to really stay in from BasedWhat's perspective.
I think either way, you don't actually do that much to Clefable anyways, so I think Volt Switch is always your
right. Right. But we see an Ice Beam. The Ice Beam comes out on that switch.
Yeah, I think he's trying to catch Gliscor.
Yep. So in comes the Amoonguss here as switch into Clefable, trying to capture some momentum again, perhaps, on the Moonblast. I think that's basically what BasedWhat's saying there, is saying, I think your fourth move is Moonblast, and I'm going to do that to make sure I take as little chip as possible.
Also, I think this is a super smart Gliscor switch here from SteamBuns, because you need to get Gliscor poison as fast as possible so that you can have a consistent Spore switch in.
Exactly.
So he's predicting that Cyclone's going to switch out, which it always is on the Clefable.
Yep.
And going hard Gliscor there is huge. And he gets it in on the Amoonguss, which is nice.
Yeah, that's an insanely useful play that SteamBuns makes on this turn here. So as we see now, it does get the poison, which is very, very useful, and then immediately just goes back out to catch this Garchomp in a double, which is, again, really, really cool, because at this point, I think BasedWhat is trying to come in here on this Gliscor and basically bait it into sort of a chance to set up its own rocks, attempts to do stuff, because Gliscor, I mean, with boosts it can handle this Garchomp, but this Garchomp, if it's Tank Chomp, probably has Dragon Tail on it as well for phasing. So that's probably what BasedWhat's trying to get at here is, you know, okay, fine, if this sets up and I have to take a +2 Facade, okay, fine, at least I can get it off the field for a little bit of time.
I think it's worth noting that this Garchomp isn't super important for BasedWhat.
Right.
So I think its role here is to get up rocks and then phase as much as it can with Dragon Tail.
Exactly. So SteamBuns, again, very perceptive, is going to take advantage of this and double from Gliscor into Cyclint. And now, since this Cyclint is Sash, like, not that BasedWhat knows this necessarily, but SteamBuns has a free spike opportunity right here.
Yeah.
Which they take, as Chomp sets up its rocks. So now, Clant has either, again, a second layer of spikes it can set up. It could go for just to knock out this Chomp with, what, Ice Beam? Yeah, Ice Beam.
Yeah.
There's so much that SteamBuns could maybe do in this situation, so it's worth considering every single possibility here. As the Caesar comes out, basically taking an Ice Beam if it so desires, but SteamBuns goes for a second spike. I remember, too, when I was watching this fight initially, I remember thinking that Cyclint was the thing that was going to win the game for SteamBuns once the Scizor died.
Yeah. I mean, Cyclint kind of runs through the opposing team. Like, it can't really do that much to Manaphy, but Manaphy also, because this is Sash, has to take a lot of chip in order to deal with Cyclant.
Right.
So, and everything else gets extremely pressured by Ice Beam.
I think they all die to Ice Beam, actually.
I don't
Torn
think Tornadus does.
Yeah.
I don't think Tornadus does, but the rest absolutely do.
100%.
Or I don't think Amoongus does from full, but it gets close. Yeah, I also, it's just the fact that spikes are just huge value.
There's so much momentum, and as we'll see, you know, if BasedWhat is going to use Defog here and get rid of spikes, this is probably where he has an opening to do so. But as we see here, he megas and then goes for a U-turn instead to pop the balloon on Kit, and now he has Amoongus out on the field. So
yeah, that reveals pretty much, because if this is Defog Mega Scissor, you have to defog there. Otherwise, you cannot just let Spike stay on the field.
It's
and the fact
so
that
detrimental to his team.
Yeah, the fact that he didn't defog there means that this team has no removal, which is a somewhat common thing in Horus. It's not unheard of, but when you run into a Spikes stack team, which is what SteamBuns is, you get punished hard. So you're going to see throughout the rest of this game, I would assume, that Spikes is going to do some massive work.
Yeah, especially on things like Mega Caesar here. Manaphy's not going to be at full anymore. The Amoongus is going to lose a lot of its regen recovery. So those are all huge to SteamBuns over the course of the game. In comes Tornadus, perhaps predicting, I don't know, U-turn basically. Excuse me, I burped. Probably predicting a U-turn just to, you know, capture momentum, get recovery as needed, take a hit. But it does allow a free Crucible in. So now SteamBuns can, in theory, if they so desire, mega and, you know, do something. The problem is Scizor is probably going to come in, right? So what do you do? If you're just going to switch back out, Crucible gets Regenerator as its base ability, so it doesn't make sense to necessarily mega here if you think you're not going to stay in with it. So in comes Amoongus here, just because I assume it's a good switch in as well. SteamBuns doesn't mega, so that he's able to maintain the regen, which is very, very useful for getting it in later in the game. Now, Gliscor comes in here, and Gliscor is always going to have a Swords Dance against these Amoonguses. It's going to resist, or not resist, it's going to be neutral to grass, it's going to be like neutral to poison, but it's tanky enough, and Amoongus doesn't have any offense. Can't be spored, and Clear Smog is just going to be like an annoyance. So
I think the reason that BasedWhat stays in here with Amoongus is because if it's not Swords Dance Gliscor, which there's a chance just looking at the team that it's not, then Amoongus and Gliscor don't really do anything to each other. They can kind of just stall each other out for a few turns. But because this is Swords Dance Gliscor, this Amoongus needed to switch on that turn, because it didn't. I mean, that's something is either taking a lot of chip or a KO is the chip.
Right. So as we see here, it is a Clear Smog. So SteamBuns can't really make progress with it, but they can also have their Gliscor just sit out there for as long as they want it. But in comes Manaphy, and Manaphy is, I would be so much to say that Manaphy, if you don't have at least an answer and a half, if not two answers for Manaphy on a team, you're in some serious danger. Just
you really need something strong that outspeeds it.
Yeah. Like, Manaphy is like Commodore-esque in that you have to have answers to it on team building, otherwise you kind of just lose. But it's not so busted that it needs to be removed from the tier.
Yeah, it demands respect.
Yeah.
It's a speed for the difference.
Yeah, basically. 328 speed, base 100. You know, it's not what it used to be. So we do see a Swords Dance from Gliscor, but you can't really do anything about that because it's not as fast. So we see it stay in, take a hit, which is crazy. I thought it was going to switch out into something, but it stays in, takes a hit, goes for an Earthquake on Manaphy. Very impressive that it stays alive and can Earthquake this. I have to imagine SteamBuns was calculating these.
Yeah, this is SPDF invested Gliscor, which I think it always lives Ice Beam from Manaphy, even offensive Manaphy.
Right.
And the reason he goes for this is this Gliscor can recover with Roost, and he can do that on Amoongus.
Yep.
That is its chance to do it. And Amoongus is going to come in at some point because it's pretty pivotal to this team, to BasedWhat's team working. On the flip side, this Manaphy doesn't have an easy means of recovery outside of leftovers, and spikes are on the field, meaning that it has at most two more chances.
Yeah, like
no, I mean realistically one.
Yeah, realistically. So yeah, having chip on this Manaphy, even if this Gliscor is basically dead, is really, really useful for SteamBuns here. So as we'll see here now, SteamBuns is going to recognize that it's important to perhaps keep Gliscor alive, and sends in Latios here on the Surf from Manaphy. Again, I think Surf is a high percentage play, all things considered. You have a better answer against Kit that might come in. Yeah, I think that was kind of what was.
And it's not like Ice Beam would kill the Latios. It would.
Yeah, not without boosts. So as we see, Latios comes in, and since it is Scarf, you know, SteamBuns does have some freedom, but again, switches into Kit, as we see on the switch into Torn here, because Torn was going to be able to take anything that Latios could do.
Yeah, him switching into Torn there automatically confirms that it's Assault Vest.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little questionable, because if it was Psyshock Latios, they would have done quite a bit.
Yeah.
But generally they don't run Psyshock, it's just Psychic, so
right.
I think that was a good switch. It also generated good momentum.
Yeah, especially because we see now Clef coming in here, and it takes a knockoff just fine. Clef is one of those things that can just kind of take a knockoff, which is really, really useful for SteamBuns. The U-turn from BasedWhat's Tornadus brings in the Amoonguss, which again thinks it can just sort of sit there because it's expecting the fourth move to be Moonblast, when in reality, SteamBuns reveals the Flamethrower as the fourth move, meaning that Amoonguss can still kind of sit there, but now it does fear burns. If it does want to click Spore, it still can, but Gliscor is just going to come in and take up any spores.
I want to talk about that turn really quickly.
Yeah.
That just happened here. So this is like but actually, the turn of the Amoonguss.
Yep. We'll get there. Right here.
Yeah, so right here, it's a really, really important 50-50. So Spore is super powerful because it's Spore and Sleep is broken. And Gliscor is in range of Giga Drain killing. So right now it's a 50-50 for SteamBuns going either Latios on the Giga Drain or Gliscor on the Spore. And I think if I'm based, because Gliscor is so low and because it's super important, it does super well into the rest of BasedWhat's team.
Right.
I agree that the play of him sporing, because it's really aggressive to go Gliscor here. It's way easier to just sack something to sleep. But SteamBuns predicts it. That was the 50-50. Got it right. And it was very impressive to watch. And honestly, even though it's still all the Mons are alive, that alone probably won him the game.
Yeah, SteamBuns' impressive aggressiveness here is what's going to let him make a lot of progress throughout the game. And this play right here is really one of those plays, because if Gliscor does go down, then I suppose what comes in? The Cyclant, probably? Just to get chip, getting that chip on Mega Caesar?
If Gliscor goes down, then it's very difficult to deal with the Mega Caesar for the rest of this game.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a super aggressive play, but it paid off.
Yeah, it really pays off in spades here, as we see, because Amoonguss does go for the Spore, and then Gliscor can easily click Roost here. And BasedWhat has very little it can do to punish that. And BasedWhat even applauds that, saying, well played there, so, you know, real sees real. Basically now this Gliscor is going to start Swords Dancing again, because it can on this Mega Caesar. But U-turn goes into the Manaphy, and again, SteamBuns is going to be... If SteamBuns wants to preserve the Gliscor, which they have expressed an interest in doing, they will need to switch it out here out of fear of, again, an Ice Beam.
Yeah, and it's not like Tailglow really nets BasedWhat any positives.
Right.
Because really a number of things can switch on to this Manaphy and force it out. 4 of SteamBuns' Mons are faster than it, and it's so low that it can't eat any hit. So he's really free to do whatever he wants, and this Manaphy has to attack.
Right.
So it is pretty much assured that it has to Ice Beam here.
Exactly. And so SteamBuns is going to recognize that incident in Cruci, which can take an Ice Beam just fine.
I think it can take a surf as well. It's very specially bulky for
Yeah.
no reason.
And that makes sense too. Like, you'll see here that SteamBuns, I believe, does not Mega again. Yeah, it goes for a Stone Edge, expecting the Surf from that to live that, and then still maintain regen if necessary. So a Stone Edge on the Chomp doesn't do a ton, as expected. Clef comes in on that Chomp's Swords Dance. That shouldn't be a problem, though, if this Clefable were, in fact, Moonblast, but because it's not, SteamBuns doesn't really have any options aside from either letting this Chomp kind of do what it wants, or letting the Sash pop and then just hitting with a Ice Shard or anything. And one thing to note about Cyclint, for those of you who might notice, it's not taking Stealth Rock damage. It has the ability Mountaineer, which is a custom ability that allows it to be immune from rock-type damage on the turn it switches in, like Rebound. So as a result, it does not take Stealth Rock damage. So, as we see, an Earthquake comes out, doesn't pop the Sash. Interesting to note. So, BasedWhat's obviously fearing an Ice move, just in general, but instead it goes for the U-turn, dodges the Para, thankfully, for SteamBuns, and in comes the Crucible once again taking advantage of regen, and at this point, SteamBuns is going to Mega and effectively knock out the Cyclone. Cyclone was probably sack fodder, if I had to guess.
I mean, at that point, nothing can switch into this because Scissor would have to take spikes,
Yep.
which would put it into range of Stone Edge.
Yeah, because this thing's got really good just attack. So now Scissor comes in, and at this point, you know, it can't take 2 Stone Edges, so unless it roosts, which it does, but that means that it just has to wait till a Stone Edge from Cruci misses, basically, and doesn't crit. So
I think
recognizes
SteamBuns there was calling out the roost because he has to roost, otherwise he's going to lose to Latios.
Yeah, exactly.
And was trying to fish for a crit with Crit Edge. Just a fine play. It's a little risky, but it's a good play.
I think it's probably the safest play for now. Just like, you want to get into BasedWhat's mind a little bit. You want to see what they're going to think to do. I think it's reasonable enough. So Kit comes in here, and it's, again, revealed Wisp, revealed U-turn. So, you know, this Scizor doesn't want to stay in. It's going to U-turn. Or, excuse me, no. It was U-turning on the Crucible.
Yeah.
My bad. So, yeah. Kit's revealed, Will-O-Wisp and U-turn. In comes a Garchomp, right? So, obviously, Kit's got to switch out. Gliscor comes in. Like, predictable plays. Stone Edge does nothing to a Gliscor. Kind of nuts. Yeah, and this is SD Edgequake, so makes sense. It's a pretty standard set.
Yeah. And +2 Stone Edge here doesn't actually do that much to Gliscor.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's where another really interesting thing happens. So Chomper gets to +2, right? And this thing's going to roost now back up at full. So now that Chomp's at 2, you kind of have to, if you're SteamBuns, you're thinking, okay, realistically, is he ever going to click Earthquake on me? Because otherwise I can do whatever I want. He has to click Stone Edge if he wants any opportunity to damage me. So SteamBuns is going to take advantage of that and send in Cyclint for free, because in what world is BasedWhat going to click Earthquake?
I think the play for BasedWhat is either to Stone Edge, predicting Gliscor to attack, or to Swords Dance again, because Stone Edge is only doing like 55 max at +2 to Gliscor. So there's really no world where your Earthquake's using Cyclone. So Cyclone is it's an aggressive play that you don't technically need to make, but it's a very good one.
Yeah, and again, we finally get the once per tour Mountaineer pop go off, and when it happens, it's always really exciting. Because again, as we see, Cyclint will switch in here on the Stone Edge, being immune, and now again it can kind of just click Ice Beam and have fun with it, because Scizor, I guess,
Scissor couldn't switch in, but I think BasedWhat didn't want to let him get a third layer of spikes up for free.
Right. So yeah, down goes Chomp, and in comes Torn, forcing Plant to switch. Doesn't want to risk the speed tie. To send.
I think it also lives in Ice Beam, and will KO it back with Heat Wave.
Yeah, I was thinking like even just U-turn.
Yeah.
Like for chip. Yeah, so this is going to go for a U-turn here, expecting, what, a knockoff from Clef at this point?
No,
Soft
it was
boiled?
U-turning. It was U-turning on the cyclone, assuming it would switch.
Ah, okay, yeah. So, yes, that makes sense. So yeah, Amoonguss comes back in. It wants to click Spore, maybe. It wants to do something else, maybe. It switches out. SteamBuns is going to go for a Wish here.
Yeah, and this is the first time he reveals Wish, which
Yeah.
is really important because Wish enables Katsuna to sort of switch into Scissor very easily.
Yep.
And not worry about the chip.
Yeah.
He stays in, which is weird, but he does stay in.
Yeah. And so it's the Caesar is going to go for a U-turn here, bringing in, again, a Tornadus Therian. So now Clef stays in, actually going to receive this Wish, go for a Flamethrower, try to get that damage off on Caesar, because I think a Flamethrower from this wouldn't knock out the Mega Caesar, but it would be very close. It would be like, what?
It would put it into range of like spikes, essentially.
Right.
Or spikes wouldn't KO it, but
It would
if
be like
it switched into spikes
yeah.
and any attack, it would just die.
Yeah.
And it does not die to Bullet Punch. So.
Right. So, because SteamBuns has revealed Wish, there's probably Protect on this, and Clefable has to be running T-Wave, right? Like, you would never see a Clef without T-Wave unless it was like CM, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even CM Clefs in Gen 6 run T-Wave.
I don't. Some of them do, but most of them are running CM Life Orb. So
Oh,
that'd be
true.
soft boiled and blast. Flamethrower.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right. I'm wrong. You're right. So yeah, it's going to get this Wish. So BasedWhat's going to go for a Hurricane here to get the chip, but unfortunately for BasedWhat, the Torn gets paralyzed with the T-Wave, and at this point, like, let's look at this team, really. The fastest thing on it was just cut into, what, a quarter, right? So the fastest thing on the team is now Manaphy. Compare that to the fastest thing on SteamBuns. You've got a Kit, you've got a Crucible, you've got a Cyclant, you've got a Latios. Like, you do not have to worry about speed anymore. The only priority you might have to worry about is, like, a BP on Mega Caesar, but at this point, that's pretty unlikely, I think, right? SD not?
I mean, SD Turn is somewhat popular. I think it probably is SD, given that it's not defog.
Yeah.
So it's definitely SD, but it's the fact that like it takes so much chip from all the things it has to switch into and spikes that it never gets a chance to do it.
Exactly.
It's always forced to roost.
Yeah. So at this point now, because that's paralyzed, BasedWhat's in a very difficult position. Never mind that SteamBuns has just a bunch of threats to the team now. And at this point, you know, SteamBuns plays really aggressively here too, I feel, switching in the Clant on the Amoonguss. But hey, it doesn't matter because it's a double and the Caesar is now in. But the Wish does come out on the Cyclant, which is at least good for...
I was so sad watching this because I thought the Wish would get it back into Focus Sash range, but it's 2% off of being at full.
That would have been so cool if it did. That would have been incredible to witness.
But it did not, so it must switch out again.
As is all things in life. Disappointing. So yeah, it's going to switch out here, go into Kit, because again, Kit has sort of these freeze into Mega Caesar to an extent. It's going to Swords Dance, and then Bullet Punch, so...
Here, I think BasedWhat is just hoping for a Wisp miss.
Yeah.
That's what he's banking on. I don't think he has another out. If Wisp misses, he does have a very good shot of winning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't miss, so that's pretty much game.
Yeah, game's kind of decided right here because he goes for a taunt, revealing the last... revealing third. Which, like, I remember SHSP and Call was just losing his mind over, like, what is this set? I remember he said something like that.
It's a good set. I'm
a
big fan of this kit. I had never seen it before. SteamBuns brought it here, and it's pretty fire.
Yeah, utility kit. Last move is Shadow Strike. So
yeah,
pretty good. I like it.
And most kit are defog, but on this team it's actually Latios that is defog. It's choice to defog. Because you don't actually need Stealth Rock removal that much, because you have Magic Guard Crucible, Mountaineer, Cyclant, Clayable's immune, Gliscor has Poison Heal, and Kitsuna resists, so you don't really need defog that bad, and you just want spikes up in general, so you don't get the consistent defog with Kitsuna.
Right. Right, and besides, even if too you're spiking stacks, you don't necessarily want to click defog all the time anyway, so it's not necessarily worth losing some of that utility from Taunt for Defog, which is a low percentage usage move on this team. And a Bullet Punch doesn't even kill this kit, which is great. And now you see the Shadow Strike come off, knock out the Mega Caesar. So that's kind of how it's going to be. This Tornadus comes out, and basically this kit's just being sacked at this point.
Yeah.
And it doesn't die.
Lives U-turn.
Yeah. So the Amoonguss comes out, obviously just to regen off some stuff. You could burn it, you could taunt it, you could put it in a stew. Taunt comes out.
He taunts there just to deny Spore in the future.
Yeah. Because now Cyclint comes in here, can click moves, Crucible can come in.
Yeah.
And
Crucible does come in.
Yeah, as we see, sets up rocks too to make sure that now that is like basically the nail in the coffin for this Tornadus Therian.
It's also to ensure that Manaphy never has a chance of getting any sort of recovery back. It's going to take away too much.
Yeah, and at this point, it's kind of just game. SteamBuns is sort of playing around, I wouldn't say, well, not playing around, but like definitely trying to work odds in his favor just with like health manipulation at this point with Wish. Like hoping for perhaps a para from the Torn, which we get here at turn 48, because now Cruci can come in for free, and we get another Paralyze there, which is huge. So now Crucible is at full, it can click any button it wants, and that's basically it. BasedWhat making the quip. For my own sake, I'm going to say that Iron Tail killed there. The big Iron Tail Tornadus Therian, the set that everyone uses. Not Sludge Bomb. So yeah, a Stone Edge for Mega Crucible, 2 HKOs, Amoonguss at that range, which is still absolutely insane to me.
Yes, strong one.
Yeah. And at this point, SteamBuns can do a variety of things. SteamBuns could prevent Spore, obviously, with the Gliscor. Can just sort of click, if it wants to click Facade, it could do that Earthquake. Earthquake is an interesting play in case they do want to go Torn, but...
It doesn't particularly matter. The Torn can't do anything back to you. The Manaphy cannot KO with Ice Beam.
Right.
So you just ensure it doesn't tail glow here. Or you can switch out, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you would just click, like, an attacking button.
Yeah. No, nothing really matters at this point. Cyclant wins.
Yep. And BasedWhat recognizes this and forfeits. So that is the ORAS highlight match of the week. So, yeah, we have 3 of these. I think in total this video is going to be almost an hour 20.
Big time.
So, maybe an hour 10, hour 15. So I hope you all enjoyed listening to us for this extended period of time. We hope to have more CAPPL replays such as these, CAPPL if you call it that way. Dex, do you have any closing thoughts?
I hope there are some more good games. I hope there are better SM games. A lot of the SM games in week 1 were a bit disappointing and a bit luck-filled. So
yeah.
I'm hoping we get some better SM games next week.
Right. And no, we will not be covering Spoo versus Dugza. Stop asking us to.
We will not be doing that. It's a terrible game.
It's a horrible game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you thought any of these matches were interesting. And we'll see you for week 2 of CAPPL highlight matches with Voltage and Dex. Dex and Voltage. See you all later.
Bye.